r/ask Reddit. What is technically correct but no one really does it that way? In Monopoly, if you land on a space and don't buy it, then it's supposed to go up to auction for any other player to purchase. Buying property. Whenever you land on an unowned property, you may buy that property from the bank at its printed price. You receive the title deed card showing ownership. Place it face up in front of you. If you do not wish to buy the property, the banker sells it at auction to the highest bidder. The buyer pays the bank the amount of the bid in cash and receives the title deed card for that property. Any player, including the one who declined the option to buy it at the printed price, may bid. Bidding may start at any price. Very true. Although this is rarely a problem, because usually people buy any and every property they land on. Combine this with no free money on free parking, and people don't have enough money to buy every property very fast. You end up auctioning off a lot of properties at below value to the people who still have some money left. I recently, rather lately, went through a class to get my Nova Scotia driver's license. Supposedly, there's a rule that you have to honk the horn to indicate passing someone, and I'm not sure why it's in the law or if this is a common thing. We're apparently meant to put it as the correct procedure during a written test, but not meant to do it anytime on the road, including during the road test. It makes no sense to me why that's still in there if we're even told we shouldn't do it, but it is, and we're meant to acknowledge we're meant to do it but never actually do it. In BC, you're supposed to pull over and take a nap if you are tired when driving. In BC, it's also illegal to sleep in your car at the side of the road. I tried to pull over and take a nap one night in Kentucky. Every time I would pull over I would wake up and couldn't sleep, especially in a rest area where there was lots of light. So I drove a few miles further where it was really dark, pulled off where I found a dead end about 100 yards from the overpass, and promptly started to fall asleep, but then was woke up by a state trooper who informed me that if I wanted to sleep it had to be in a rest area. Granny throws from the free throw line are more accurate, but no one wants to be seen doing it that way, including pro basketball players. Wasn't there a pro or college player that would do that and make like 95% of them? Jackie Moon. The nearest airport tells ticketed passengers to arrive at the terminal at least 3 hours in advance of their flight time. Very few, if any, do that. Yes, you must arrive 3 hours early to spend at least 2 hours drinking $12 beers. What really pisses me off is that once you get on the airplane, it's only $5 for a beer, so it costs $5 to fly this can of beer 35,000 feet into the air and have a unionized flight attendant serve it to me, but twice as much to keep that beer where the law of gravity says it should be and have a $10 a barely above minimum wage HMS host employee sell it to me. Using venomous poisonous correctly. Everyone says poisonous snakes, but most if not all are venomous. Simple rule of thumb. If you bite it and you die, it's poisonous. If it bites you and you die, it's venomous. We found a spider in the bananas at work and I went to get a closer look, without actually touching it. The store manager said careful, it might be poisonous. I said don't worry, I'm not planning on eating it, and he looked at me like he'd caught me finger blasting his wife. Again. Holy crap, was it a Brazilian wandering spider? The kind that's so brutal entire grocery stores have been shut down because there's one in the freaking banana shipment? Adding the trailing dot at the end of the domain name. It really should be www.reddit.com, but everyone leaves off the trailing dot. Open bracket. http://www.dnssd. org trailing dots and domain names. HTML. Edit. Hey. Gold. Row. Probably the best comment of this thread. Nobody does that. Literally. We're all doing it wrongly. Perhaps the ducking genius that thought of that useless ass dot was TGE1 who was wrong though. The words hanged and hung. People get hanged. Objects get hung. People tend to use them interchangeably though. She told me I am well hanged. That's one way to be rid of you. In the United States, I rarely see the rod of Asclepius, a snake wrapped around a stick, on medical vehicles and offices. People usually opt to use the caduceus, two snakes wrapping around a staff with wings at the top, which is actually a hermetic symbol for the Greek god Hermes. The two symbols look similar, but they have different meanings and origins. Asclepius is indeed associated with medicine, but the caduceus is not. Hermes was the god of thieves, so hospitals in the US are definitely using it correctly. All US hospitals are now in need of a burn unit after that comment. Reading all the terms and conditions. I'm a lawyer who spends all day yelling at clients who don't read all of the contract terms before signing. Then I go lease a car without turning past the first page. My new job just tried to get me to sign every HR document without reading. I was hired as an attorney. I told them I would bring the signed documents when I was done. Not actually sticking the Q-tip in your ear. It just feels so good. Plus, how do you get the gunk out if you don't go deep? Dunno if this has been posted, but when abbreviating into just the letter N, I, E mac and cheese, boats and hose, there should be an apostrophe on either side of the N because you drop letters on either side of it. Mac and cheese, boats and hose, edit, said either, really meant each, edit 2. This explains a lot, thanks you / Givant. Same for Lil, should be Lil. Well, so long as we're being technical, the rationale behind apostrophes is that they indicate omitted vowels and pronunciation, not spelling. The contraction of little to lil is actually an instance of what's called I-dialect, and the optional use of an apostrophe in lil is to indicate the omission, or oticization in most American dialects, of the T. By this reasoning, an apostrophe should not be used to indicate the omission of the final E, as that is more of a spelling artifact, and isn't actually pronounced per se. Personally, I tend to write it as lil, because I don't really like the look of it with a medial apostrophe, and also because that's how I tend to see it written elsewhere. When turning onto a multi-lane street, you are technically supposed to stay in the lane that is nearest to you, but most people just go for the one they want to end up in, impeding others' ability to turn. I don't consider this optional, but I guess the guy who swung into my lane and nearly plowed into me yesterday disagreed. Turning into the nearest lane is not only correct, it's the law, along with zipper merge, which most people don't do either, although that one's not the law in most states, and coming to a complete stop at a stop sign, versus mostly stopping, and not following too closely, and using your turn signal. The number of people using could've or should've is too damn high. Could've, should have. Should've and could've are both proper, but they sound the same when saying of instead of that. I think this is just one of those problems where the person writing it out had never seen it written before. They only have heard it spoken. Show every step in your math problem. Outside of a formal logic course, that generally just means show enough work that I am convinced you solved it yourself and know what's going on. It can also be show all your work so I can figure out where you screwed up on this easy question. 1 die, 2 dice, 1 boob, 2 beeb, 1 louse, 2 lice. The slash in URLs are forward slashes, but people keep calling it \x. I finally found the courage to tell people they're wrong about this, but they just called me a nerd and my plan \slashed. Okay fine, you got me. All of driving. I just got my license at 23. Before that I had a permit for 7 years, and as I got older I paid driving schools to help me learn and practice. So I had to do everything by the book. Blinker, mirror, blind spot, stop behind the white line, look both ways, give 2-3 car lengths between you and the car in front of you, wipers on, lights on, follow the speed limit. You all know what people do. None of that, not even a little. Turn signal before brakes. OMG, this. Also, a lot of people tend to use brakes when just coasting will be fine. If you want to slow down just a bit, don't hit brakes, just ease off the gas. Damn. People saying less instead of fewer. Where's Stannis when you need him? Davos is keeping it going. Lather, rinse, repeat, easy, shampoo, I've got work to do. It's a scam anyway. You don't need to wash your hair twice per shower. It's just a way to get you to use twice as much shampoo so you have buy twice as much per year. You're supposed to push a car with your butt to the bumper. Most people put their hands on the car and try to push that way, but it's easier to push with your legs. It's also safer if you've broken down in traffic because you can see what's coming up behind you. Well, even with hands on the car we still push with our legs. You're really supposed to use your lower back in a jerking, twisting motion Take the legs completely out of the equation. Saying I couldn't care less. Why do so many people say I could care less? Maybe they really did care, just a teeny tiny bit. I, wrongly, could care fewer. Calling my ex a slut when she really is a prostitute. A national convention. Americans have the constitutional power to basically join together as a 70% majority and say enough of this government bullshit and start a new system. Literally Trump supporters' definition of drain the swamp. The whole process is a pretty open-ended way to change and probably unstable and scary, so we don't do it that way. You think it's hard getting 60 people to agree? Try getting around 200 million people to agree. There's zero case law about it too, which is freaky. No one knows what could actually happen if one was held. Like, you could call a convention to consider some specific issue, like healthcare, and amend the constitution to fix some problem. Is there any legal reason that it couldn't come back and say we got rid of the executive branch? No one knows. Ejecting before pulling out the USB cord. Corrupting my files scares me too much. I eject every time. Edit. Holy wow. So we've got conflicting info below, but I think I'll stay safe and always eject. Bottom of the totem pole. The bottom is the most important person, not the least. Just look at a totem pole. The bottom figure is larger and more prominent in design and color. Be right back, I'll go check the old local totem pole. You're not supposed to speed, tailgate, change lanes through intersections, or tape MLB without both implied oral and explicit written consent. Implied oral and explicit written hort, consent. Also hort, because consent is always cool. Here's a good one. When you apply jumper cables to car batteries in order to jumpstart a car, the final clip you connect should be the negative lead to the car that will receive the energy. But here's the thing. You don't connect it to the negative terminal of the battery. You connect it to a grounded piece of metal on the engine. That's the part most people don't bother with, even though there is a good reason. The reason you are supposed to do this is to avoid creating sparks near the battery. Through normal operation, lead acid batteries can produce hydrogen gas, which is explosive. Doing this will have the added benefit of allowing you, by the lack of any sparks, to see if there may be a bad connection somewhere. Using wrongly as an adverb instead of wrong. He answered the question wrongly. He done goofed. Done goofed. 1 graffito. 1 spaghetto. 1 canolo. I forget who said it, but I was always amused by someone I heard saying they never order a panini anymore. They can't bring themselves to order a panini because that's the plural. But they don't want to be the pretentious ass who orders a panino. Driving the speed limit. This is primarily because most jurisdictions set them absurdly low. I won't disagree with that, but I talked with an engineer about this who made a really good point. A lot of the time, the speed limit isn't about how safe it is for you to be driving that fast. It's about how safe it is for another car to turn onto the road. Turning onto a 30-mile-per-hour road is far safer and easier than turning onto a 60-mile-per-hour road, especially if there are issues with line of sight. Think curves, trees, etc. Pronouncing GIF, but duck that. GIF for life. I pronounce it Skippy. If you read the instructions on a box of disposable diapers, it says you must flush solid waste before disposing the nappy in the bin. A very popular subreddit is r/datasbotiful, which is technically incorrect. The word data is a plural form of datum. Therefore, it should be either r/datumusbotiful or r/datarabotiful. However, it sounds a lot better when used incorrectly. The word data is the plural form of datum. I would actually argue differently. In the Latin language, there is a word data which is a plural noun, the plural of datum. However, in the English language, the word data is a mass noun, like spaghetti or information or mud, and is actually not the plural of datum. That might raise eyebrows, but I really mean it. The word data is a very common word in English, but the word datum is not. I talk about data all the time, but I would never say take a look at this datum. In fact, I'm not even sure what a datum is. If I give you a fact like Michael Jackson died in 2009, is the entire sentence just one datum? Or is his name one datum, and the year is another datum? The language belongs to us. If we genuinely don't say datum and are not quite sure what a datum even is, but we say data all the time, then that means that in our language, the word data is not the plural of datum. Similarly, the word propaganda is a mass noun in English. It might come from a Latin plural, but it's not a plural in English. We say this propaganda, not these propaganda. English isn't Latin. The Latin origins of a word might be interesting trivia, but they're not necessarily part of English. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.